So no Garden Cities presentation would be complete without Mr. Howard, a mention for Ebenezer Howard. And I always love the 3 magnet diagram. You have to like that for the fact it stood the test of time. It's 100 plus years old. It's a very simple concept. It's about, in fact, it's really 2 magnets. It's town and country, and the 3rd magnet is town and country together. So what happens when you get the benefits of the town with the benefits of the countryside? It's very much that kind of simple notion. I love the poster on the right for Letchworth, which is of course our first garden city here. The health of the country and the comforts of the town. You always wonder what the comforts of the town were, but I'm sure there were things about other people nearby and great food and places to work and that kind of the buzz that we all probably get from cities, and probably why we're all part of this group. But then the solace and the sort of peace of mind that you get in the countryside, and isn't there something that sort of brings those 2 together? And obviously 100 years ago the concept was the garden city, and it has stood the test of time, and it is getting a lot more focus now, certainly within government, as we look at how to approach the housing pressures that we all face, in London certainly, but also elsewhere around the country. That we're going to keep the focus on London these next few days, but I'll also touch on some things outside London. The other key diagram, of course, is the bottom one, the kind of hub and spoke diagram, where Howard had the idea of the kind of the centre, bigger centre in the middle, supported by towns of sort of 30-odd thousand residents. I'm not sure we ever saw that precisely built out, but a lot of those notions have appeared, and they've appeared again recently. Those of you who know Cambridge, you could think of what's happening around Cambridge as the hub being Cambridge, and you're seeing places like Waterbeach or Alconbury Weald or Millstowe, which is an HA project, coming forward on part of that arc. So I think all I'm trying to say is here, we're revisiting this thinking around town, country, hybrids of those, and the kind of hub and spoke model. And one last historic slide. What great graphics. I love looking back at the posters from that time. The TCPA lent us these. They have them hanging up on their office wall. And you can see, a lot of clarity of thought. Again, you can see the sort of radial pattern. I love the fact you can, all these things you can do in Welling. play rugby, hockey. There's a tennis racket in there. There's some. It's a little bit bucolic maybe, but they're compelling. So when we were starting to think about Ebbsfleet, we were thinking, there's a language and there's a set of graphic tools and a way of communicating. Obviously, we do it now through multimedia and through all our online activity, but how do we think about that again for this moment in time? So what's the government doing? I do a lot of work very closely with DCLG. The HCA is an agency of DCLG. And 2 years ago, they put a prospectus out called Locally Led Garden Cities, and that announced Ebbsfleet as this garden city for the 21st century. It's the first time the government has called for a garden city. Previously, they were private individuals who were getting the idea going. And then just at the budget that we've had in March of this year, another prospectus has come out from DCLG for locally led garden villages, towns and cities, and that's the work that I do now. So I've moved sort of across from Ebbsfleet to promote that second prospectus. And we're calling, those of you in the room who are working on garden villages, towns or cities, a village is 1,500 homes, we're saying, a town 10,000, a city bigger than that. So those of you who are involved with those projects, we're asking for expressions of interest by the end of July, so about 6 weeks' time. We'd love to hear from you, and I'm around today and tomorrow if anyone wants a conversation. But what's happening elsewhere in government, we've heard already of Lord Adonis's National Infrastructure Commission. Fantastic that thinking is happening to link infrastructure to growth, the housing challenges and the infrastructure challenges. And then also I've done quite a bit of work with the Department of Health, because they have the Healthy New Towns programme, and a lot of the bigger developments in the country, like Whitehill Borden, Ebbsfleet for sure, Millstowe I've mentioned, are being looked at as how can they become kind of healthy new places. So again, at the very heart of the origins of the planning system, you have kind of health and environment and those concepts, and they're definitely here again. Won't go into detail on any of those, but those are projects that are active now around the country. So Ebbsfleet, kind of the first one, if you like, as a garden city. You see all sorts of hybrids in the name. We've got a garden town in Bicester, we've got a garden community in Northants. There's all sorts of North Essex, I think, is a garden settlement. So various projects happening around the country starting to look at these themes. But my focus will be now on Ebbsfleet. I'll tell you a bit about that, some of the parallels with what we've been hearing from Michael and Richard and Robin and others, and then I'll just do a little bit on other places. So I won't encourage you to turn around, but if you were to turn around and look the other way and follow the Thames, you would get eventually to Ebbsfleet. You have to go a little way. We are outside London. Ebbsfleet is in Kent, so it's on the south bank of the Thames. You have to go through the Thames barrier, and you have to go under the bridge which carries the M25. But as soon as you're under that bridge, you're in the area that's known as Ebbsfleet. So that's how you would get there via boat, and the Clipper does, if asked, run to Ebbsfleet. We have to commission it to go to Ebbsfleet, but they do that, and we did that early on with our team, just to kind of get the river arrival experience, which is very, very different to if you arrive on the train. We already have our high-speed station. We've got an HS1 station. It takes 17 minutes to get into St Pancras, again that wonderful arrival space in central London, and it takes you only 8 minutes to Stratford. If you go the other way, you're in Paris in 2 hours, or you'd be in Lille in 90 minutes. So that's quite exciting to have that rail connectivity there. That station opened early 2000s, and you would think as a kind of planner or urbanist or maybe a commercial property person, well, if you put a fantastic international station in, surely you'll get growth and development around it. That's what we tell each other, you know, infrastructure-led development. But actually it's now, where are we now? We're a good sort of 12, 14 years later, and those sites have struggled to get going. So you have to ask yourself, why have they struggled? Before I leave this slide, just, you know, it's not just the HS1 station, there's also commuter rail out to Gravesend and to Dartford and to Northfleet. So we've not just got that sort of high-speed route, we've got the fine-grained commuter rail, more regular services into Victoria and into the city. We've got Bluewater, which is probably the most successful, commercially successful shopping centre in the country, just to the left of the image that you're looking at. That's owned by Land Securities. That trades incredibly well as a shopping centre, and it is built in a former quarry. And the key thing there is that this land is all former quarries. So if I come on to this image, the one you saw at the beginning, that's the eastern quarry. Bluewater is actually built in the western quarry. And then the road that you see is a spine road between the two quarries. So the parking in the bottom left of the image is the Bluewater parking. There are tunnels, only access tunnels for commercial traffic construction traffic really, into the eastern quarry, and it's a massive hole in the ground. and so you've got here you've got real challenges around topography. If you want to garden city in a site like that, where it's not like a straightforward thing to go and build roads and cycle paths and so on. Our very first challenges are to understand the land, to understand the topography. It is spectacular. When you're in the bottom of the quarry, you feel like you're in a kind of gorge in the south of France. It's really dramatic. At the bottom point, the cliffs are about 40 metres high, so you're really far down. These are chalk quarries, and it was the chalk that was used by the cement industry. So a lot of London has been built on the chalk substrate that's come out of Ebbsfleet. It was owned by Tarmac and Blue Circle, and those companies is now owned by Lafarge Tarmac, and they've, in the last decade or so, sold this particular quarry to Land Securities. But you can hopefully see that it's a challenging terrain, and it's almost like a Belgian waffle. If you think of a big Belgian waffle, you've got the kind of roads and the movement corridors on the upper level, and then you've got these kind of scooped out quarries. That is a challenge, but not impossible. And as I said, we've got the HS1 station, which you're seeing towards the centre of the image there, and in the foreground, another quarry. This was an interesting one, again a chalk quarry. They were mining it one night, came back in the morning, and it was full with water. And they'd hit the aquifer. So the mining equipment is still at the bottom of that quarry. So that was a loss-making quarry in the end. It's actually beautiful now. It's called Blue Lake. It's got a lot of people locally love it. They love to dive into it, and it's very, very cold, and it's got all sorts of stuff at the bottom, I imagine, but it does also have big security challenges as well. But you start to think about, again, looking out the window, what can you do with sort of floating homes, or it actually takes up quite a large area of land, very close to the station. Could you start to do some kind of houseboat community, that kind of thing? So pretty much everything in that slide is the Garden City area. We're 1,000 hectares, so we are a very large site. We have the HS1 station, but actually you can see all you've really got around the station In the foreground is car parks. It's a popular place to park your car if you live in North Kent and then get on the high-speed link. And then the green sort of mounded area is old landfill. So that's where a quarry was filled with landfill and capped. Not easy to build on, yet it's right next to a station. So we've come about this as a development corporation, again, to do some strategic planning, to understand what we have got. We've applied for enterprise zone status and got that, so that helps with attracting businesses to be around the station. We're fortunate in many ways. We've only got two major landowners, Land Securities and Lafarge Tarmac. They work well together. They've got a joint venture ownership around the station, so that helps, certainly. Eastern Quarry is now building from the opposite end of the one I showed you before. This housing got going about a year, 18 months ago, Ward Homes. It got a lot of criticism at the time because people said that's not a garden city. In fact, that housing was being built before the announcement of Development Corporation. But actually Ward Homes, as a housing developer, were very brave to go in to test a market. There was a lot of money spent by Land Securities in stabilising the ground, and those are the physical challenges you've got in this area. In the end, there'll be all sorts of mixed-use development in that quarry. And we've also got some, what I think will be spectacular waterfront sites. I'm going to motor a bit more quickly, so I'm giving the 5-minute sign. I wouldn't want you to miss the the Swanscombe Peninsula, that other peninsula, which is environmentally fascinating. It's flooded, it's quite low-lying. This is where the Clipper will pick you up on the far side. There's old docks and things. It has not been heavily mined because it's quite low soil. But you'll have heard about it probably because it's where Paramount London have put an application, or about to put an NSIP application in for a major theme park. So in the way that Paris has got Disney, Paramount want to have a London resort here. They love the fact that it's on an HS1 line linking Paris and London. You can start to see the kind of travel packages now that sell to theme parks into European cities. That's going to take a while to go through the planning process. I know folk in the room, Farrell's office in particular, have been involved with this, but an exciting opportunity, huge amount of investment. What have we been doing? We've been trying to think, well, this is a very challenged site, really, because of the terrain, but actually there's some amazing green spaces. You've got the A2 at the bottom of that image, and it's all green belt to the south, and the Thames to the north. So actually, what about some kind of city in the garden between the Thames and between the Greenbelt? Let's look around. How are we going to reimagine garden cities for the time that we live in? We like some of that stuff that you get in Hammerby. I'm not sure those sort of towers are quite right for here, but you want to have a look at them to see what might be right about it. But I can see something like the lower image working. And let's not always go overseas. We've got some great stuff in this country. Those are all taken in Cambridge. Some really nice developments happening on the edges of Cambridge. Architecturally interesting, urban design, great. And what can you do? So I trained as a landscape architect, so I get very excited by green spaces, and it doesn't have to be big parks like Central Park or Regent's Park or even the Olympic Park. You can do a lot with, those of you who know the High Line in New York. That is a fantastic linear park. It's a very urban condition, and it uses a small amount of green space in a brilliant way, linking connections, the kind of things that Robin was talking about. So the image on the bottom left there is from the quarry. We've been thinking about how can we get these kind of linear systems working in the quarry. And what can you just do with simple measures like street trees? Spectacular street trees there that actually bring that whole fairly dense urban street to life. The seasonality that you get with landscape is great. Kent has a very distinct landscape, and we looked a lot at our kind of ecological and environmental context. You get sort of these relic buildings from when it was more of a fortified area of the country. We're not far from Chatham Docks in this location. You also get these sort of estuary, very flat landscapes. How can we start to think about a new architecture, a new public realm, a new landscape for a new garden city? And let's be smart about it. Let's think about how we use those green corridors to have the data cabling underneath, to make use of technology. There's a lot written about smart cities, and that's very much what the Development Corporation are working on now. And I'm just going to finish with a very few slides. So that's kind of the Ebbsfleet story, if you like. Where are we taking that within government and within the HCA? Well, we're back at this diagram. I think Richard showed this. You had the psychedelic version. This is slightly less psychedelic, but it's that same thing. I often think of it as almost like petals of a flower unfolding out from the centre of London, where you've got the Cambridge corridor. We're seeing both there, the Milton Keynes region up to places like Rugby, Corby, Kettering, huge amounts of growth. Ebbsfleet obviously sits in the Thames Gateway where we are right now, and also stuff happening towards Oxford, Reading, further south to the airport down by Crawley and so on. So, and there is, how are we going to accommodate growth? And it also isn't just in the wider southeast. We have to be thinking about HS2, what happens when you get to Birmingham, or when you get to Crewe, ultimately at Manchester or Sheffield, these kind of northern powerhouse projects. How can we make the infrastructure and the growth and the regeneration opportunities work there? This is some work that Nathaniel Litchfield have helped us with. Yet there is enormous pressure, and this is a diagram, don't take it too much as read, but you know, the pressure is really for housing in the southeast, in the east, which is kind of the Cambridgeshire side, and then the wider Midlands. And so how do we, as government, as national agencies, kind of work to deliver growth where it's needed and in the right kind of way? I guess that was my main thesis here. And I love this image from Farrell's, which talks about the work they're doing in Bicester, and this is a garden town with 13,000 homes, but actually the bottom one starts to look at not just the Thames Gateway, but also the Thames Estuary, which of course takes you all the way up to Oxford and Bicester, and thinking in terms of different, bigger geographies, and this excites people within government as well. There's a lot of focus now on the Oxford-Cambridge arc again, which we've heard about for a long time, but how can we really do things with these shared agenda? And some images. I'm happy to talk about this later to anyone interested in this new programme, what support there is from government. I'm getting the time signal, so I'm going to end with some trees. And that's Letchworth. I like it because the trees are generally better 100 years later. There's probably a lesson there about kind of how we plan now for future generations. Thank you.